Ukraine has turned the tide in modern warfare with a $400 weapon. But how is this drone outperforming million-dollar U.S. military technology? Stick around to uncover the shocking innovations behind Ukraine's battlefield dominance. Russia's invasion in early 2022 forced Ukraine to adapt faster than anyone thought possible. Faced with an overwhelming military threat, traditional methods of waging war were out of the question. Ukraine's leadership turned to innovation, tapping into its network of tech-savvy engineers and small businesses to meet the challenge head-on. But this wasn't a smooth process. Ukraine began with minimal manufacturing infrastructure for drones, relying largely on small imports and a limited inventory of military hardware. On top of that, Russia had already developed robust systems for electronic warfare, jamming signals, hacking drone controls, and disabling GPS. The early days of experimentation were brutal. Ukrainian forces regularly lost drones to Russian interference before they could have any tactical impact. The situation demanded solutions, and quickly. Out of this chaos came determination. Ukrainian engineers started from scratch, building low-cost drones that could be assembled in garages and small workshops. Workshops became assembly lines almost overnight. By 2023, Ukraine had devised a highly efficient acquisition system to speed up this process. Unlike traditional military procurement systems, often bogged down by bureaucracy, Ukraine's approach cut down approval time to weeks, sometimes even days. Civilian developers pitched innovative designs directly to the military, and successful concepts were fast-tracked into production. Entire industries sprang up, seemingly overnight, many of them converting civilian technologies into tools of war. This streamlined approach paid off. By early 2024, Ukraine had ramped up drone production from a few thousand units a month to almost 20,000. But that was only the starting point. By 2025, the country was manufacturing an estimated 200,000 drones every month. This included everything from short-range FPV drones, costing as little as $400, to long-range reconnaissance aircraft. The implications were staggering. A single squadron armed with 400 FPV drones equipped with a basic explosive payload could disable tanks or destroy artillery positions with precision strikes. The sheer scale of this production left even established military superpowers like the United States reevaluating their own strategies. However, quantity wasn't the only area where Ukraine excelled. The battlefield forced constant upgrades in software and countermeasures. Drones became smarter, their software rewritten and adjusted to counter Russia's advanced jamming systems. While traditional military drones rely heavily on GPS, many of Ukraine's creations could operate autonomously or switch modes to avoid signal interference. They were also highly adaptable. If Russian forces introduced new countermeasures, updates were developed within weeks, sometimes days. These innovations allowed Ukraine to stay ahead of Russians' drones and anti-drone defenses. But what made Ukraine's approach revolutionary wasn't just the hardware. It was the way it turned low-cost innovation into a devastatingly effective strategy. Traditional military philosophies, such as those employed by the U.S. or Russia, placed their emphasis on expensive, high-performance drones capable of dominating airspace. Ukraine flipped the script, proving that a swarm of budget-friendly drones could overwhelm even the most advanced defenses. Take the comparison to the United States, for instance. Its MQ-9 Reaper drone cost around $32 million per unit. For the price of one Reaper, Ukraine could field tens of thousands of FPV drones. Russian drones such as the Garin were closer in cost but still couldn't match the creative problem-solving that Ukraine employed to stay a step ahead. The simplicity of Ukraine's approach added another advantage. While Russia and the U.S. designed for perfection, Ukraine built for attrition. This low-cost, high-volume strategy didn't just tilt the battlefield, it reshaped it. Thousands of drones flooded every scene, from the trenches of eastern Ukraine to strategic infrastructure targets deep within Russia. Each attack forced Russian troops and planners to divert resources toward countermeasures, further stretching their already strained war machine. Now, the spotlight turns to Russia. Faced with Ukraine's innovative swarm tactics, how has Moscow evolved its drone arsenal? Let's find out. Why has Russia ramped up its drone strikes so drastically, often unleashing over 500 drones in a single assault? The strategy might appear simple at first: overwhelm Ukrainian defenses with sheer numbers. But the story begins with Russia's early limitations in drone warfare. At the start of the conflict, Russia's arsenal was far from cutting edge. Lacking sufficient domestic production, Russia turned to Iran for its solution. The partnership secured shipments of the Shahed 136, or as it's branded in Russia, the Jarin. This inexpensive, long-range drone gave Moscow a temporary advantage, but these imports weren't enough to sustain an extended campaign, prompting Russia to invest heavily in domestic production. By 2023, Russia had established local manufacturing for the Jarin drone, particularly at its new facility in Yelabuga near the Volga River. Production skyrocketed to approximately 170 drones produced every day, a significant boost to their capabilities. This allowed Russia to replace and deploy what is lost in massive numbers. However, manufacturing these drones at scale wasn't purely about logistics. It was a cornerstone of a new strategy. Instead of precision strikes carried out by a few advanced platforms, Russia moved towards saturating the battlefield with hundreds of drones and coordinated attacks. These swarms aren't designed purely to inflict damage, but to overwhelm Ukraine's sophisticated air defenses, forcing them to expend valuable ammunition on inexpensive targets. The Jarin drone itself has also undergone upgrades during this period, and now features a range of 900 kilometers, making it capable of reaching deep into Ukrainian territory while behind frontline defenses. Incorporating satellite-linked control systems, the drones can adjust their flight patterns mid-air, giving them a higher degree of precision than their earlier iterations. Allegations suggest these systems might be augmented by hacked Ukrainian SIM cards or even Starlink terminals, though the specifics remain unclear. Regardless, the improved capabilities have made these drones persistent threats to Ukraine's supply lines, ammunition stockpiles, and infrastructure. Coordinated drone campaigns have shown devastating results. During a recent series of attacks on Kyiv and Odessa, Russia launched over 500 drones and missiles in a sustained barrage. Air raid sirens became a near-constant backdrop as air defense systems scrambled to intercept the waves of incoming threats. These densely packed strikes caused not only physical destruction, but psychological strain on civilian and military forces alike. In Kyiv, for instance, a singular attack involving 315 drones caused damage to key infrastructure and led to several civilian casualties. Each strike forces Ukraine to draw from its finite pool of air defense systems and ammunition, a costly trade against Russia's relatively inexpensive swarms. One particularly clever tactic involves the use of decoy drones. Russia deploys these simple machines alongside its Jarin platforms, baiting Ukrainian defenders into wasting resources on less critical targets. By the time the main wave hits, air defense systems have often been depleted, leaving Ukraine vulnerable to the attack's full force. Strategy has amplified the damage inflicted by ensuring that each strike penetrates deeper into Ukrainian defenses. Yet, Russia's reliance on mass production tactics has its drawbacks. The predictable nature of their swarming strategy has allowed Ukraine to adapt countermeasures effectively. By studying flight patterns and launch site regions, Ukrainian forces have begun to anticipate these large-scale attacks. The swarms also suffer from high attrition rates. Many drones are shot down before reaching their targets, meaning Russia must continuously replenish its stock. Although their production facility in Yelabuga mitigates some pressure, sustained losses put an ongoing strain on their industrial and logistical resources. The contrast between Russia's brute force production and Ukraine's nimble adaptability reveals a larger dynamic at play. While Moscow relies on numbers to saturate the battlefield, Ukraine's focus on rapid innovation has undermined this strategy time and again. But how exactly is Ukraine using its superior tactics to change the course of the battlefield? The answer lies in how this relentless drone competition has evolved into a tactical chess match. A key feature driving this evolution is the constant race between offense and defense. When one side introduces a technological edge, the other works quickly to neutralize it. Ukraine, for example, has consistently updated its drone software to resist Russian jamming systems. By integrating artificial intelligence into both guidance and navigating processes, Ukraine has produced drones that can continue their mission even when signals are disrupted. Meanwhile, simpler solutions such as fiber optic control drones have helped bypass electronic interference altogether. Russia, too, has prioritized electronic warfare, creating sophisticated jamming equipment and even deploying decoy drones to confuse defenders. This tug-of-war has turned the battlefield into a live demonstration of how quickly technology can adapt under pressure. What separates Ukraine's approach, however, is its flexibility. Unlike Russia's mass-produced drone swarms, Ukraine's decentralized grassroots innovation allows it to constantly outmaneuver its adversary. Operating close to the front lines, Ukrainian engineers and manufacturers can rapidly tweak drone designs, test new systems, and replace outdated models. Their streamlined acquisition process means civilian prototypes can be tested and deployed as military tools in less than a week. This level of agility highlights why Ukraine's drone remains such a persistent challenge for Russian forces. The creative tactics employed by Ukraine further emphasize how it turned creativity into a battlefield weapon. One striking example involved hiding drones in civilian trucks for long-distance operations. These covert strikes have targeted locations deep inside Russia, including air bases once thought to be safe from retaliation. Such missions don't just inflict material damages, they send a clear psychological message for Russian troops and commanders. The knowledge that no territory is beyond reach undermines confidence. Civilians experience this impact too. As regions far from the front lines are plunged into uncertainty, these strikes combine audacity with ingenuity, redefining how drones are deployed in modern conflict. Russia, for its part, has used drones like the Lancet, a type of loitering munition, to strike Ukrainian supply lines and sabotage rear echelon operations. Unlike traditional weapons, loitering drones circle over the battlefield, waiting for an opportune target before striking. This makes them particularly effective against moving or lightly armored vehicles. Fiber optic control systems on some Russian platforms further reduce their vulnerability to electronic interference, allowing them to function in heavily contested areas. Drone warfare has already transformed the way conflicts are fought, and Ukraine's success reveals why. By embracing rapid innovation and repurposing civilian technology, Ukraine has shown how adaptability can counter even the most heavily equipped adversaries. This shift exposes significant flaws in traditional military doctrines, which often prioritize complex and sensitive systems over flexibility. As Max Boot stated, drones are the future of warfare, and Ukraine's approach demonstrates how smaller nations can compete on a global stage through ingenuity. What remains uncertain is how this accelerating arms race in drone technology will reshape global power structures in wars yet to come.